Let's get started. So, like I said, my name is Melissa Keeney. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a community health educator here at Montefiore Nyack Hospital. And today I'm talking to you about cultivating healthy food relationships and environments at home. So, really, how we can help our children to learn how to eat in a way that's going to be nutritious and to give them a peaceful relationship with food. So before we get started, I'll just tell you a little bit about how I became passionate about this subject. I really love talking about intuitive eating. It's something that I started working on personally about 5 or 6 years ago, and I have found it to be so helpful, not just in eating and with my patients, but also really like once you start eating intuitively, you can start living intuitively. And I hope that you get a sense for what I'm talking about when we're done with this presentation today. So today's agenda, we're going to review the traditional versus the modern way of educating children about food. We're going to look at mindful eating and intuitive eating research and techniques. Then we'll look at the different food groups and how to make a balanced meal. That's important. We'll wrap up with some nutrition and food resources, and I have some fun ideas for how you can teach nutrition to your kids at home. And then finally, I'll have some time to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, you can feel free, drop them in the chat, and I will try to answer them as I can. I like to make this a little more interactive. So if you like to put something in the chat, you can. Otherwise, I will answer your questions at the end. All right, let's get started. Okay, so educating our children about food. So this was the traditional way of teaching our children. We use this food education model that's focused on health through this healthism lens. And the term healthism was first came about in the 1980s. And really the idea of it was, okay, candy is unhealthy, so it's bad. Strawberries, healthy, good. All right. So foods that might not be considered to have nutritional quality, high nutritional quality, are considered bad, and foods that have higher nutritional quality are considered healthy or good. Then we kind of shift into this modern way of thinking that foods are neutral, and we can have an inclusive, supportive thinking about food choices, and that all foods fit, and there's a place for all foods in what how we eat throughout the day. Oh, by the way, I'll use the term diet as we talk today. When I talk about diet, I don't mean like a specific diet or even a restrictive diet. When I talk about the word diet, I'll talk about like a way of eating. So it's just the way that we eat throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. All right, so that's our new modern way of thinking. Why this change? So healthism places a moral obligation on your health as an individual. And I hear this a lot with the patients I work with. Like, I think the classic example that we hear is patients will tell me, I was so bad yesterday. I ate pizza. And they're attaching that moral value to themselves because of what they ate. What we eat doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. So when we attach that moral value to food, we're also attaching it to the person who is eating the food, so maybe the child, and also to the person or caregiver who's making the food choice or providing that particular food. And this can be harmful for any age, especially for children, right? I mean, they're so impressionable, and we're really setting the example for maybe even like how they're going to feel later in life. And calling foods good or bad really encourages diet culture. And ultimately, it can lead to disordered eating, shame, body stigma, or even peer to peer stigma at school. So we are not in 100% control of our own health. And that's really a change from what we thought with this health as a model, that if we ate a certain way and exercised a certain way and you know, reduce our stress and our sleep and all of those things, then you can just be healthy. But now we know that there are many different things that account for our health outcomes. In fact, according to the World Health Organization, social determinants of health account for between 30 to 55% of health outcomes. The social determinants of health, those are non-medical factors that influence health outcomes. And research shows that social determinants can be even more important than healthcare or lifestyle choices in influencing health. And I have a little picture for you on the side that gives some examples for what those social determinants of health are. So that includes economic stability. Where are we getting our food from? Do we have enough money to purchase the foods that we need? Education access and quality, healthcare access and quality. That's something here at Montefiore Nyack Hospital that's really important to us. Neighborhood and built environment, where someone lives. Depending on where someone lives, they might live in a food desert where they aren't able to get as many of those nutrient dense foods as somewhere else. And then finally, social and community context. And I think we'll talk about that a lot today as we go on. Providing an inclusive, supportive view of food. So therefore, we want, of course, we want to build a positive relationship with food in children. So instead of motivating from this health lens, we're really teaching life skills that will help build confidence and competence around foods. Celebrating a diversity of foods. So if we're enjoying a variety of foods from a variety of cultures, then we're probably getting a variety of nutrients, and that's really cool. Promoting food as fuel. So this is a way that we can spin it for the children, like that we can use food as fuel for school in order to be able to do well in class, to be able to move, to be able to run the fastest on the playground, any of those kind of things that that help them understand like that it's giving them energy. And also making food fun. And I hope I'll give you some examples of some ways that we can make food fun as we go along. So the outcome of the all foods fit model is really to promote a healthy relationship with food by encouraging curiosity and exploration rather than restriction and shame. So I've heard this question, but if I allow my kids to eat all foods and just let them eat candy, won't they just eat candy all day? So they did this really cool study, and they I love this study, and I often talked about it with adults as well. But they did this cool study and they gave M&Ms to kids. They gave them yellow M&Ms and they gave them red M&Ms. And they told them you can eat as many as the yellow M&Ms as you want, but you can't eat any red M&Ms. So of course, as soon as the test participant, the proctor, walked out of the room, of course, all of the kids started eating the red M&Ms because they were told that they couldn't have them. And the same thing goes when we make put a certain kind of food on a pedestal and make that off limits, then we're more likely to want that particular food. And that goes for kids or adults too, if we're telling ourselves that we can't have those foods. And the research shows that. So food restriction to promote moderation has been actually shown to have the opposite effect. So when we're restricting food, then it can actually have the opposite effect. Humans are born with the ability to self-regulate their food intake and stay in balance. But when parents and other caregivers exert control or pressure or restriction regarding food intake among their children, then it really is weakening that child's ability to trust the body signals that they were born with. And there's numerous organizations, including the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics, which include advice in their feeding guidelines for children about recognizing and respecting children's signals of hunger and satiety, which is one of the core principles of intuitive eating, which we'll discuss today. So what is intuitive eating? Intuitive eating is a flexible eating style, and it focuses on really trusting yourself, trusting what your body is telling you. Now, we're all born intuitive eaters. Babies, when they're born, they're going to cry when they're hungry, and then they probably are going to stop and push away the food when they're not hungry anymore. But over time, when we're receiving mixed messages about how much we should eat or if we're hungry, then that starts to erode the trust of our own personal trust in our body and autonomy. The same thing happens with kids, when we're telling kids, you have to eat everything on your plate or you can't possibly be hungry right now. It's really making them not be able to trust their own body and autonomy. So that flexible eating style, intuitive eating, is really following physical hunger and satiety cues to guide when, what, and how much to eat. And this is definitely a practice. Like I said, we're all born intuitive eaters, but if we're adults now, this might take a little bit of practice in order for us to learn how to do this again. But it's definitely possible. Oh, mindfulness and intuitive eating. So mindfulness and intuitive eating really go hand in hand. Mindfulness and mindful eating is a piece of intuitive eating. How kids eat is just as important as what they eat. So removing distractions at the table, all sitting together as much as you can as a family, um, being able to give kids the opportunity to pick what they like to eat. That's all a big piece of mindfulness. Increased mindfulness and savoring food can help people and kids enjoy food and eating while eating the right portions of foods to support optimal growth and nutrition. And a lot of times, what we see is that if people are eating more mindfully, they're going to enjoy their food more, they're going to absorb their food more, and they're going to be able to tune into their hunger and fullness better. And it's going to allow them to eat the right portions of food. So intuitive eating was developed in 1995 by two registered dietitians. Their names are Evelyn Tribbley and Elise Resch. And really, since the 90s, intuitive eating has developed and changed a lot. It's not what it once was, but this is the current edition. It's the fourth edition. And they have key principles, 10 key principles. And these have been modified a little bit so that we can use them for kids. So these are the principles. They don't need to be done in order. It can sometimes help to do them in order, but really practicing each of these principles uh, can be help you in order to become an intuitive eater. So number one, focusing on habits to promote health rather than weight or weight loss. We're going to talk a lot about that later. Determine portion sizes based on hunger and fullness. Incorporate all foods into a healthy eating plan and avoid labeling foods as good or bad. Practice savoring your food. That's that mindful eating portion we were just talking about. Use a hunger meter to identify hunger and fullness. I have one I'll show you later. Recognize potential emotional triggers for eating. So important for kids and adults. Reinforce that bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and really all shapes and sizes can be healthy. Encourage movement as a way to feel good and gain energy and strength. We call this joyful movement, which I really love. Encourage following an eating plan that promotes health and tastes good and allows for favorite or highly enjoyable foods sometimes, even if those foods are not considered healthy. And that I think can be a tough one for parents to get on board with. These are some of the benefits of intuitive eating. Um, there's been over 100 research studies on intuitive eating. If you're interested, oh, I didn't include that as a resource, but on the intuitive eating website, they have a list of all of the different research studies that have been done on intuitive eating. But here are some of the benefits: improvement in diet quality, increased fruit and vegetable intake, improved psychological health, including better body image and higher self-esteem, and improved blood pressure and cholesterol. Now, of course, we might not see these, right away in children, but these are skills that we can help teach our kids at a younger age so that we can see these benefits later in life. So I have this little diagram here. We have two different boys here, and I want you to just think about this and think about your internal biases. I included as a resource at the end of the presentation, if you'd like to look at your own weight implicit bias Then Harvard has a test that you can do to test yourself. But just something to throw out there. Like when you're looking at these two pictures, who eats more dessert? Who eats more vegetables? Who eats fast food more often? Who plays outside more regularly? Who drinks soda more often? Who eats dinner with his family? And the answer is we really can't tell by looking at someone, right? We have to look deeper. And that's why weight is not the best way to measure health. We have to look deeper at the healthy habits. And that's where we start to talk about health at every size. So, health at every size and intuitive eating really go hand in hand. We can't have one without the other. A child's weight doesn't tell the whole picture when it comes to health, and the same thing goes for adults. What does determine health? And these are just some of the examples, but I'm sure there's more that we could think of. Those social determinants of health that we talked about earlier, foods that we eat and how we eat them, right? That mindful eating, daily joyful movement and physical activity, sleep, stress, and then relationships and family culture. All of those are a better measure of health than just someone's weight or body size. I wanted to talk about, of course, as a dietitian, this is really important that we talk about. I mean, of course, we want our kids to eat nutritiously, and as all people, we should be trying to make most of our foods nutrient dense. I think where the problem comes in is when we're so focused on those nutrient dense foods that we start to restrict those fun foods. But this is an easy way that we can start thinking about how to build meals and snacks. If we're eating a variety of different foods and a variety of different colors, then we're getting a variety of different nutrients. And usually I tell my patients it's not like every single day we have to be eating something different, but eating that variety of foods over the week and over the month and over the year is going to give you that variety of nutrients that you need. And this, I think, can be a little bit tricky. This is like a whole nother presentation, but this can be really tricky when it comes to kids, right? And picky eaters. But hopefully following some of these methods that we're going to talk about in the presentation today is going to help your kids become less picky eaters too. So okay, when we're building meals and snacks, include with most meals and snacks a grain or a starch, a protein, some dairy, especially important for kids, but important for adults too, and then a fruit and or a vegetable, depending on the meal, depending on what's going on. So that's just a template that we can kind of use when we're building meals and snacks. And I have some ideas for meals for you from the Feeding Littles cookbook. Um, the one on the left, we almost have like a little bento box, so a little school lunch that your kids could go to school with. And in that little center box is like egg cups that also have they have flour in them. So that's where our starch and our protein is. And then we have some fruit, we have some cheese, and we have some vegetables. So lots of color, lots of variety, lots of different things to choose from. Then in the middle, we have a soup. It's a bean soup with farro in it. Same thing. We have lots of colors. We have our grain or our starch, which is the farro. If you haven't tried farro before, that's a fun grain to try, especially around this time of year. We can use it in soups or salads. Our protein, which is a plant-based protein, we have beans in there. Dairy, it looks like there's a little bit of cheese on there. And then we have a fruit, no fruit in this one, but we have a vegetable. And you could always serve a fruit on the side if you'd like. And then to the right, we have some English muffin pizzas. So I think the one on the right looks the most delicious to me personally. We have like some broccoli and cheese on it on a whole wheat English muffin. So there's just some ideas for how we can start building meals and snacks. And I'm going to give you some resources at the end that you can use to get recipe ideas and inspiration. I wanted to go through the food groups that way you have an idea what each of those things include. So grains and starches, those are a great source of carbohydrates. They have vitamins, minerals, fiber. Fiber is really important for kids and adults. It can help prevent constipation. It helps keep us feeling full. And usually foods that are higher in fiber have more nutrients in them too. So some examples of grains, whole wheat bread, crackers, brown rice, oatmeal. I have some other ideas. I have some air fried sweet potatoes on the side, or some Hasselback potatoes, some waffles. Like this one's a whole grain waffle, but it doesn't have to be. Even like a whole grain cereal. That's another great option. Some ideas for how we can incorporate grains and starches: that whole wheat English muffin pizza that we just saw, cheese with whole grain crackers, yogurt that has it's topped with a fruit and a granola, or that whole wheat cereal. So there's our grains and starches. And then next we have protein. So I think usually when we think of protein, most people think of that growth and development and building muscle. It's the same thing for kids. We really want to help promote their growth and development. Foods that are in the protein group, typically we think of meats, fish, and poultry, but we also have plant-based sources like nuts and beans and peas, and then eggs also. Some protein ideas specifically for kids. It can help to serve them in a variety of different textures, and like I talked about before, serving a variety of foods. So we have a variety of meats and other protein choices. I have some cool ideas for you. To the right over here, we have a kid smiling. He's eating some eggs. We have beans. Then we have homemade fish sticks or homemade chicken nuggets. And then an option that the kids can take to school. I think most schools, we have lots of peanut allergies now. So sun butter is a good option for protein for kids when they're in school. So that's protein. Next we have fruit. Fruit's great because it gives us vitamins and minerals. Really, all fruit goes. There's way too many to list on one slide, but you can use any of these examples that we have here: strawberries, apples, oranges, bananas, mangoes, peaches, pears, any of those ideas. We can make fruit kebabs for a snack. I love this one. Has some this example that's down on the bottom has like a yogurt dip with it too. So we're incorporating dairy as well. Making a smoothie with fruit and yogurt, another way we can incorporate dairy. And really being a good role model. So we'll talk about this a little later on, but for parents, like if kids see you eating fruit, then they're going to be more likely to try it too. So just being a good role model and giving them choices. There's a lot of research. If we give kids a choice, do you want an apple today or an orange today? They're going to make a choice rather than just giving them the apple or having them decide. So giving them the choice between the two is going to increase the chance that they're going to try it. And then on the top here, we have a little rainbow made of fruit, which is fun. And then the one on the top right is actually like a fruit pizza. So it has yogurt and it has fruit on it, and it's actually on a cookie. So that's another option, ways that we can incorporate fruit. And I love this too because it's really like I love talking about nutrition by addition. So if we're taking something like a cookie and we're adding some nutrition to it, so we don't always have to add nutrition to it, but in this case, we're adding a little fruit. It's going to add some color. It's going to add some nutrients for the kids. Vegetable. So veggies, they're another one packed with vitamins and minerals. Again, a variety of vegetables going to give you a variety of nutrients. Some ideas: let your child pick out the vegetable they want at the grocery store. It could be kind of fun too. Maybe try something different that you haven't tried before and make a new recipe. Make it fun. Offer cut veggies for a snack. Same thing. Be a good role model and don't give up. We have to try things. We need to try things, and kids need to try things multiple times before we like it usually. So let's see. On the bottom, we have some veggies and dip. I just love the fun idea that it's all kind of like put in the dip so that all the veggies already have dip on them. We have these little bell pepper rainbows with cauliflower. And then on the top here, we have some broccoli bites. So some ideas for how we can incorporate vegetables. Finally, dairy. So dairy, we have helps us build strong bones and teeth, especially in growing children. What foods are in the dairy group? Milk, yogurt, cheese, foods made with milk. Like I said, milk, yogurt, cheese. Let's see some ideas. We could do fruit and yogurt or cheese and whole wheat crackers. We can do that yogurt dip like we saw in the previous photo. We could do a smoothie. And then there's some milk substitutes that can offer as much calcium. So something like a soy milk, that is going to give you just as much calcium as regular milk. That's something I would talk about with the dietitian because some of the other substitutes like almond milk or coconut milk, those might not be the same nutritionally as something like as soy milk. But that's dairy. And then I just wanted to share some snack ideas for you. So there's so many different ways, and I just love the way that these are being presented. These little lunch boxes are so cool to take to have your kids take them to school. But let's see. On the top over here, we have crackers, and these are actually wasabi peas. So that's where we're going to add a little protein in with the snack. Is peas are actually high in protein. We have a little English muffin with some blueberries, and that too, that can be made into a meal depending on how much we're serving at that meal or snack. So we can always expand these snacks and make them into a meal too, or kind of like piece them together in order to make a meal as well. We have a bar with some blueberries. We have some freeze-dried strawberries and looks like rice cakes. And I believe there's peanut butter here, which would give us our protein for the meal. Up here, we have fruit sushi, which is a really fun way to provide fruit, and we can put some peanut butter or sun butter in there, and that's served on a wrap. Then we have cucumbers and cheese and crackers. We have cheese with fruit. We have fruit with cheese. And then finally, the one on the right-hand side, the cookie with the milk, that's a great example of nutrition by addition. We're having a cookie, all foods fit, but then we're including some milk with it that's going to add some nutrition. So some snack ideas for you there. And if you haven't heard of Feeding Littles before, I think that's a really fun, they have a great Instagram page. It's run by one of the people who run it is a registered dietitian and I think an occupational therapist. So some fun ideas for how to serve snacks to kids if you ever want inspiration. So our general guidelines. I did think it was important to share this with you, but it is important. I put a big pink arrow next to it that children's appetites vary from day to day. They might eat less than this. Sometimes they might eat more than that. Offer the amounts and let your child decide on how much to eat. So these are just general guidelines. Every kid is going to be different. It's the same thing for adults, right? I usually say like, Michael Phelps is going to eat a lot differently than majority of the public, right? So everyone's different. It's just a starting point. Then we individualize from there. Where to start? Okay, starts with you. So parent modeling a positive relationship with foods. Your kids are going to learn from you. We all learned from our parents too, for better or for worse. Help your child recognize their hunger cues. Support children in using their body cues for hunger and fullness rather than what's on the plate. And developing a feeding routine. So, giving them the space in between meals to get hungry and feel their hunger and fullness. Resist the urge to offer food rewards. Of course, it's like an easy reward for kids. Oh, if you're good today, then we can go get ice cream. But then we're putting ice cream on the pedestal. We're saying it's more important than fruit. Prioritize family meals whenever possible. It's fun. It's a nice way to catch up at the end of the day. And research shows that kids that eat more family meals are going to eat foods that have more nutrients in them. Creating that positive experience around food and meal times, which definitely takes time. Again, reinforcing that healthy bodies come in all shapes and sizes. We cannot tell how healthy someone is just by looking at the shape or size of their body. Avoid labeling foods as good or bad. We talked about that already. And that might take practice, and that's okay. You're human. We practice, and that's something that we all innately, I think, I mean, I hear it all the time with my patients, but that's something that we all innately learned from a young age. So we can unlearn it. It might take a little bit of time, and that's okay. It's practice. Here's that hunger fullness scale. So credit to Jill Castle, who's a registered dietitian. Um, this is the hunger fullness scale that she uses, but we can practice this, like asking kids where they start, before their meal. Are you hungry? Are you starving? We want kids to probably start at 2. We don't want to start at 1 because first of all, it looks like this person is hangry. They're past starving. And so they might be more likely to eat past fullness, right? That happens with adults too. If we're too hungry before a meal, then we're going to eat past fullness. Um, so we really want to start at that hungry, and then eating slowly and practicing and being more mindful with eating, we want to stop somewhere when we're about satisfied, or maybe between satisfied and full, depending on the day. We don't want to get to that point where we're stuffed and not feeling good. So starting at a 2, ending at about a 3, maybe we'll call it a 3.5. But again, takes practice. I wanted to share with you Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. So Ellen Satter, she's a social worker and a registered dietitian. She developed this division of responsibility for who is responsible for what when it comes to food, what the parent is responsible for and what the child is responsible. So parents, their responsibility is to choose and prepare the food, to provide regular meals and snacks, to make eating times pleasant. Step by step, show your child by example how to behave at family mealtime. Be considerate of your child's lack of food experience without catering to likes and dislikes. Not letting your child have food or beverages except for water between meal and snack times. Now, of course, like this might depend on the day and what's going on and, the situation. And then finally, letting your child grow into the body that's right for him or her. And then the responsibility of the child: eat the amount he or she needs, and learn to behave well at mealtime. And one of her quotes is, "You're responsible," and this is an easy way to remember the division of responsibility. You're responsible for what, when, and where. Your child is responsible for how much and whether. And this model really helps to build that trust and allows children to build autonomy when it comes to meals. So really, I wanted to kind of like pull what she said, what the division of responsibility says, and kind of like pull it into practice. So here's some practical ideas that we can use at mealtime. Choose 4 to 5 different food items to ensure that nutritional balance. We talked about that earlier at meals, and 2 to 3 different food items at snacks. Make sure to include a considerate food. So that's one that you know your child will likely accept and eat. Space those eating opportunities out every 2 or 3 hours so the kids really have an ability to build and recognize their own physical hunger. Provide a safe and distraction-free space, ideally kitchen table or the island, wherever you like to eat, for the kids to eat. And then allow kids to explore the foods that they provided. Choose which foods to eat and choose how much to eat. So that's some practical ways that we can really put this into practice. I wanted to share some fun food activities that you might like to do at home, in order to, like I said, make food more fun, allow kids the opportunity to really learn about their food, maybe feel like they are a food explorer. These are some resources that I got from kidfoodexplorers.com. It's from a registered dietitian, and I have her resources at the end. I'll share it with you. But these are some ideas. She has a lot of free resources, but these are just a couple of them. This one is about using the 5 senses to eat a particular food. You can maybe choose a different food that you've never had from the supermarket and use the 5 senses to explore it. And then here's this little food explorer hat that you can print out for the kids. So some ideas: food explorer and the 5 senses worksheet. Some fun recipes. So I've made a few of these with kids before, and they've always turned out way more fun than I thought that they would. The vegetable and fruit bugs is a really fun way to um, allow kids to be creative, maybe try something that they've never tried before. So maybe this would be a good opportunity for them to try a certain fruit or vegetable that they've never had before. The creations usually come out even wilder than I anticipated. So that's really fun. The antenna have this picture they have chives, so maybe your kids never had chives before. That might be a fun way for them to try. So the fruit and vegetable bugs, you can buy like the little edible googly eyes online. We have a yogurt parfait. They can make their own parfait. You choose the ingredients, they can kind of put it together. And then that's one that you can recreate, maybe for the week, something like that. Then we have these little monsters. That's like a fun one that you could do for Halloween. The little teeth are like the slivered almonds. So that's a really fun one. Again, probably if you give it to the kids, they're going to come out with some crazy, wild, cool monster that you've never seen before. So there's that. And then all the way to the left, we have a fruit salsa. And that can be served with like those cinnamon pita chips to kind of make it a little fun. And that's a nice sweet treat. Another way we could potentially, like maybe your child's never tried kiwi before, so this would be a fun opportunity to try kiwi. Maybe you've never tried kiwi before. This is a great opportunity to try it. So just some fun activities for home. Theme night. These are just some ideas. I'm sure you could think of other fun theme nights, but these were just the ones that I thought of off the top of my head. Uh, a Taco Tuesday. It might make things a little bit easier for you. Cooking is hard work depending on your schedule. We have a lot of things going on. Maybe food isn't the number one priority, and that's okay. If we make something like a Taco Tuesday, then we always know, okay, Tuesdays, we're having tacos. Maybe the ingredients are going to change, but we're always going to have tacos on Tuesday. So that's an easy way. Tuesday, we already have a plan for what the meal is going to be. Meatless Monday, maybe trying some vegetarian sources of meat. Those vegetarian sources are usually better for our heart, those vegetarian sources of protein. So choosing Meatless Monday might be a fun way to try different foods. I think a lot of times people feel like if they're eating vegetarian, then they're actually going to have less variety in their diet, whereas they might have more if they're trying different foods. So Meatless Monday, another one. Maybe we always have a plan that Monday is going to be the meatless Monday. So you have a little bit more of like a structure for what the day is going to look like. And then finally, a DIY pizza night. So it could be a fun way. You have these little English muffins. You can use English muffins. You can use tortillas if you like. But you can have all the ingredients out, and then you all get to pick what kind of vegetables that you add to your pizza so that everyone's happy and everyone gets the kind of pizza that they like. So that's just some ideas that I had for theme night. Here's some ideas for kitchen tasks by developmental stage. So I only put up to age 11, but it could range from just sifting the ingredients or stirring the ingredients, picking herbs, measuring, reading the recipe, chopping the vegetables, depending on the knife and vegetable and that kind of thing, cracking eggs, measuring ingredients, depending on how old your child is, then they can often do different kitchen tasks. So there's some ideas for how they can help in the kitchen. Kids that help to cook and help to pick out their meals are going to be more likely to try those foods. So that's a plus. Read a food themed book. So I'd love to hear if you have a favorite food themed book. I'd love to hear what yours is. Mine is definitely, and I buy it for all my friends for their baby shower when they ask for books. I always pick The Doorbell Ring. I love that one. It's like if anyone hasn't read it, it's like a math book about cookies and the grandmas making tons of cookies for the neighbors. So that's a really fun one. But I have some of my favorites here. And then I also have so many more options for books about food. There were so many. And then finally, because we talked about body positivity, some examples of books on body positivity. So there's a lot of them out there. These were just some of my favorites, but another thing that you can incorporate into your kids' library and talk about body positivity in a different way than maybe we can explain it. And then I think that's just about it. I just wanted to share some resources with you. So we talked about Ellen Satter. She did the division of responsibility in feeding. Jill Castle and Danny Leibowitz are dietitians who have a lot of information on their websites about kids and nutrition. The intuitive eating book that I talked about by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. And then finally, we have a kids intuitive eating book called How to Raise an Intuitive Eater. More information about health at every size for children. There's that implicit bias test for weight if you'd like to measure your implicit bias on weight. If I'd have to pick out a resource to start with, I love on the 10% Happier podcast, Dan Harris. If you don't know the podcast, Dan Harris, he used to be a news anchor on ABC, and he had Evelyn Tribole on a few years ago now. I think it was 2020, and maybe 5 years ago because it's 2025 already. But Dan Harris is so skeptical of Evelyn Tribole, and it's really interesting to hear her win him over about intuitive eating. So that's a good place to start if you want to learn more about intuitive eating. Our professional group, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, they have a whole section for kids. And then I had mentioned Feeding Littles before, and then also some kid-friendly recipes like Cooking Matters, and there's chopchopfamily.org. So there's my references. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. So I have some time to answer questions. Let's see. Oh yeah, no problem. I'm happy to share the references, and hopefully I was like getting so nostalgic looking at all these books because I loved reading as a kid, and I had so many of these books. I mean, they came out with some new ones. Like, let me see. How to Feed Your Parents was a really fun one that I just read a few weeks ago. So lots of fun books that you can read with the kids and lots of resources. So I'll stick around for another few minutes. Happy to answer any questions. Oh, can I put back the page with the list of books? Yes, let me do that now. Here you go, Suzanne. And I actually borrowed this list from Jill Castle, so you can go to her website. She has the list of all of the books. But let me know if there are any that you like. I used to love Blueberries for Sal too. Anything else anyone would like me to share again? Great. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time. I hope that it was helpful and you learned a little something. You can always reach out to me. Of course, I didn't put my email address, but my email address is mkeeney, Keeney, at montefeurenyac.org if you have any questions. So you can always reach out to me afterwards. So mkeeney at montefeurenyac.org. Okay, everyone. Oh, thank you. Yep, you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay. Okay, everyone. Have a great day.